You've heard her name mentioned week in and week out, and finally she's joining us. My guest today is the lovely matron of macabre herself, Dixie Gers, and this is Slasher Sports Cinema.
And I'm here to kill you.
I am Dracula.
You say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
Dixie on my mind. Welcome
Hello.
to the show. Thank you for finally coming on to this ridiculous weekly program that you've been booking for for the last 2 months.
It is a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You are most welcome anytime. And yeah, when I say that, I'm not being facetious. You've basically booked the last 2 months of this show. I dropped my calendar link out amongst our circle of friends, and you just start throwing people in and say, hey, go on the show. And lo and behold, they find themselves on my calendar, and I'm reaching out to these people that I've never met. And man, the last probably 8 to 10 guests that have been on this show have been because you've your word of mouth. So I have to thank you very much for that.
You are welcome. And it's just all about supporting indie film. We're all in this together. So
it is, and more specifically, indie horror. If you're want to stick with the motif of slasher sports cinema. First off, I want to give a shout out to the crew at Kingsgrove Hotel, Pub and Gaming Center in Sydney, Australia, for being great supporters of this show. Dixie, I don't know if you have children, but I have 2 grown-ass men, and my oldest son he's 20 now, and my younger is 19. We were, we're some gamers, and sometimes sports, sometimes not sports, but we were playing PGA, the golf one, 2K, whatever it's called, PGA Tour, I think, 2K, and it's a golf game. I don't play golf. My kids don't play golf, but on the game, it's fun, Well, I guess to give backstory to the non-sports fans, namely golf fans, whenever you shoot over par, okay, you get 4 shots to make the cup on a hole, right? Let's say that you make the shot in 3. That means you have scored birdie. Okay, you might have heard that term, birdie. It means 1 under par. You score 1 over par, that's bogey. Doesn't sound good, right? You don't want to be in bogey. Well, we're in bogey, and my son, he's shooting, and the announcer says, and this shot is for bogey. And my son says, this one's for you, bogey. And he shoots. And he does this a few times, Dixie. And it doesn't really register in my head what's going on until like the 3rd or 4th time. He said, this one's for you, bogey. And I came to the realization that my son thought that bogey was like some dead golfer that they were paying tribute to on like hole 6 on some random ass golf course. I hope that yours may be smarter than mine.
Don't have any kids. 4 nieces and nephews that helped raise.
Probably still smarter. Probably still smarter than mine.
Depends on which one you're talking about. The girls, at least. will be.
Okay, I'll dig that. No, I kid. My kids are really smart. They're going to do a whole lot better than I have in life, and that's what we all aim for. But what they won't do is sit down with me and watch a film like Dial M for Murder, which I watched just before we came on. And the reason I bring that up is because on this day in horror movie history, it celebrates an anniversary. Dial M for Murder was one of those Hitchcock films that it was really dependent on dialogue, very dialogue driven, as most Hitchcock films are. Had Ray Milland, Grace Kelly. But this is like one of the very first dialogue driven films that I could ever remember sitting through as a kid. Like even before I even knew who Alfred Hitchcock was, I just knew that guy with the funny shadow on the wall was a guy that introduced the shows. But you ever go like back in time to like another generation of film like that?
Not too often. So like for me, when it comes to films, like it takes a lot for me to actually sit down and watch a movie because like my mind is just going like 24/7, like creative wise. Like I always want to be working on something, whether it's like crafting. I'm a big crafter, various things,
I
or
believe that.
film stuff, or otherwise trying to like sleep and nap. So
Well, it's funny you say that because it wasn't that long ago that I was watching an old musical documentary, and it was one of those 90s female trios, and I can't remember which it was. It might have been Salt and Pepper, it might have been In Vogue, it might have been it was one of the two, and they almost spelled out what you just said, in that when they watch or when they listen to music, they don't really listen to enjoy anymore. They almost say, I have to figure out what did they use as their hook, what are they doing as a flow, who's doing the beats. Like they want to dissect this whole thing, and you're saying that's what you do as well.
Yep, sometimes it can definitely make it hard when watching a film because you notice things more, whether it's from acting or actually directing and doing things like that. So literally, like it's really hard, and I try not to do it so much. That way, I just focus on the film and enjoy it.
Sure.
So typically, I try if I watch a movie, I try and watch it with someone else and not by myself. So like definitely by myself, I'm gonna like think about that, figuring stuff out, or I'll end up spacing out and thinking about like what I want to do in my head, whether it's for a character for an upcoming movie or or hey, I want to make this thing. Not too long ago I got into doing like stained glass. So like I was starting to do stained glass pieces. So literally that's just what my mind does 24/7.
Shout out to Kyle P, who just showed up. Now Kyle P, this is he's probably on the run from somebody, but we know him as Demetrius Putra, the director and writer of the film Grim Findings of Claudius, I believe was the name of that film.
Yep.
Yeah, fun flick. I was given the honor of screening that one, and man, if Demetrius Putra isn't just a great dude all around to support, then just burn this thing to the ground, because I've done nobody any justice. I got all kinds of time for Kyle. And
thank you for the support, Kyle.
Kyle, you are a man among men. A man among men. That's kind of how I make my decisions, though, Dixie. A lot of people like to flip through Netflix, and they'll spend hours doing it. They'll watch themselves scroll through Netflix or Tubi or Hulu for the same amount of time that a film is going to run. So an hour and a half long film turns into a 3-hour film watching session, right?
Mm-hmm.
I make my decision by the on this day method. All right, what film released on this day in movie history, in horror movie history more specifically? And Dial M for Murder was that one today. So I had to jump in and just remember the things that I'd forgotten about the film, and it was very dialogue driven, but there's some very heightened levels of suspense. And Grace Kelly, I mean, there's a reason that she's a legend. Ray Milland can't be outdone. His guy was just a great writer, man, and even better director. And I think I don't like to give accolades like there's a modern day Hitchcock, but man, I've got all kinds of time for M. Night Shyamalan. I know a lot of people do not like him, but gosh, to me, he hits me with that same level of suspense because nothing happens in the film.
Yeah.
Very little happens, but I just can't look away because I don't know what's about to happen next, and the revelations that come out. And oh, hey, look here. See, Steve Morris knows. I do the same with films. It's a bummer at times, but I always try to look for something good. See, that's the isn't that there's a term for that. It's like the artist curse or something like that. That you start looking at an art that you perform yourself, and you just have to dissect it and figure out what they're doing instead of just removing yourself from the work part of it and watching for what it is. That's why I don't make films, Dixie.
But you want to, though.
Oh gosh, see, that's
I remember.
that's between you, me, and the magpies on the power lines. Yeah, it's that I would love to, but I mean, I would have to start out with short film, just locally, see what we've got, see if what I want to do has any legs to it, but. This is about me though. This is about you. All right. We've got a lot to talk about on Days of the Dead Indy. I don't think I'm going to be at Days of the Dead Indy. Indy is a little far from me. What about you?
I will not be there currently this year. There's no plans to. The only two cons that I kind of have lined up for myself, FrankenCon or Bride of FrankenCon, which is in like just a couple weeks, and then Scarefest. Obviously I would love to go to more. Actually, that's how I kind of got into all this, was because of horror conventions. I was a jewelry vendor at the conventions. I would sell like my crafts and stuff like that, like horror stuff, jewelry, accessories, all that stuff that I would make. And then that's when I met Brian Dorton at a Horror Hound convention. And then we talked about the film Crazy Fat Ethel, and then it went from there. So, but I haven't been to Horror Hound in like a couple of years. A lot of them, it's been like a minute. So like I'm pretty excited at least to go at least 2 this year.
The one in Knoxville is probably the one that I'm gonna be closest to going to. Steve Morris, his film He Knows is playing at Indy, and that's a fun film. I don't know if who else got to screen that one. Luckily, I've been given the pleasure, and I had a lot of fun with He Knows. A lot of fun with it. Got a question from Feckless Baseball. That would be that handsome devil, Steve Feck. I got all kinds of time for him too. Make content creators share your Create 24/7 dedication or dilemma. Yeah, fact. Has this ever tripped you up when working on a project?
I don't think it's ever tripped me up working on a project. I think if anything, it helps me problem solve if something's happening. Especially when I'm doing like my own shorts and stuff like that. The films that I've done, because obviously they're all no budget. So doing no budget film, you have to get creative and stuff like that. So I think it's definitely helped me like problem solve more than anything versus like tripping up on like, what am I going to do for this? Instead, I'm like, oh, I could do this or this or this. So.
Now, speaking of Brian Dorton, thank you for that question, Steve. You're a scholar and a gentleman and a few other things. But I believe you got started back in 2015 with Brian Dorton, right?
It was 2016, I think. Like literally, I met him at like a Horror Hound, which was in March, the one in Cincinnati. And like no clue who he was. He was friends with another friend and came by my booth and bought stuff. And then he was like, "Oh, you should be in one of my movies." I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool," because like I knew about indie film and stuff like that from going to conventions, stuff like that, and I always wanted to act. And I auditioned for 1 or 2 previously and got turned down. I was like, okay, well, I guess it's not for me. But ended up becoming friends on Facebook or whatever, and then he told me about Crazy Fat Ethel, and then I auditioned, and probably within like a month I had the role. So
Yes, you did. And we got another question from Steve. What subgenre of horror is your favorite to make? Steve, you asked the same question to a guest a couple of episodes back, and I cannot remember their answer to save my life. I'm interested to know the answer here, though.
that's a tough one. Because I feel like probably in the slasher genre a little bit. That's kind of like, I like the gore a lot. I like the bloodiness. So that's kind of what I definitely lean more into. If from watching my films, it's a little on the extreme side as well. The more lifelike, the better for me. I want people to like squirm in their seats a little bit when they see the gore. So I'd say definitely like the slasher genre or just straight up brutalness.
Having screened some of your films over the weekend, I squirmed a couple of times. Poor Adam Freeman, man. He's like Justin Long. He just gets it in everything that every film. I don't want to spoil anything, but I don't think that man's ever kept his penis through a movie.
I don't think so. At least not in my films.
Yeah, and I don't want to spoil anything for something you got coming up as well. Curse of the Weredeer. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, though. But it's a good question, Steve, because I think I would do the home invasion. If I had it to do over again, I would want to do. I would like for Carol Kane to come back and do another When a Stranger Calls. I would love that. Because she's a goddess, first of all. And then When a Stranger Calls, the first 15, 20 minutes of that film has got to be the most perfect 15 to 20 minutes in terms of suspense in a cold open I've ever seen. And
one of my favorites is the original The Strangers. Like when that came out, I was so in love with that film.
Yeah.
It was just so good.
Home Invasion to me just changed everything because like it's technically a slasher, but it's almost like a subgenre of slasher, so it's a subgenre. And I get lost sometimes when I'm watching paranormal or supernatural horror.
Yeah.
And it's because I don't really very much believe those things can happen. When you start tapping into the reality of things like home invasions, especially when you have, little ones, the nieces and nephews, you're babysitting them at any moment, you hear that phone call and the call's coming from inside the house. Get the hell out, right? You can't get the hell out because you got little kids upstairs. It makes it all too real. And it just feels it almost makes you hold your breath, I would either do a home invasion or a shark flick. I like shark flicks. I don't know. But question, working with Brian Dorton, again, somebody I've got a lot of time for. I like Brian. But your first ever role, and it was as the titular character Ethel, Crazy Fat Ethel. So talk me through this. How do you approach your first role being the lead character?
It was a little scary for sure because again, I didn't know any of those people. So first off, it's like, all right, I'm going to, because I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and so I'm going to Louisville, Kentucky to meet all these people. I have no idea anything about them to be part of this film. But like, I went and watched the original because it's a remake of Criminally Insane. So I definitely did watch that film several times to get that actress who played Ethel Priscilla, like her kind of like mannerisms and like how she portrayed the character down. That and like Misery, I watched a lot as well. Kathy Bates' character.
Yes.
To prepare for that role. So it was definitely a long process because I think it took us over a year to like finally film the movie and be done with it because we would film like every weekend at the time. And literally the first day I go to, like the first 2 times I was supposed to film got canceled because of injuries or like this, that, and the other. And then the third time, literally the lady that was supposed to play my aunt in the film quit. She didn't show up to set. And like I drove all that way and we're like ready to go. So last minute we found Jenny, who ended up playing the role and it was like so much better. Just for like the pig guts factor, having to use that in the film. So it was definitely a lot of fun. And like working with Brian, we just became good friends, and I would just go up there even when not filming just to hang out with everybody. So
Brian's a sweetheart. He reached out to me not long ago, and we talked a little bit. And again, all kinds of time for Brian, nothing but time for Brian. I hope to get him on somewhat soon. Once we change back to the guest format, which I'm thinking of jumping to Wednesdays for that, just to maximize the possibilities. But I want to have Brian on. Great guy. But you mentioned Misery, and I'm thinking to myself, like, right now, I would make the hell out of a Misery fan film, and I would. You'd be my first call. You'd be my first call, and then maybe get Ben Johnson to come in and be Paul Sheldon, and we would have a lot of fun with that ankle breaking scene. I might have to show you a few times how to swing. Swing a sledgehammer just to get the practice down, because I know you need to know.
Practice a little bit.
You don't know how to swing a sledgehammer, Dixie. Okay, I need to show you, and I need Ben to know how it's going to feel when it happens.
And we'll use a real one, right? Well, for good practice to make sure it looks.
Yeah, I can't afford props. There's a sledgehammer in my dad's barn. We'll use it. Ben, you're in for the time of your life, buddy. Gosh. Now listen, Steve Morris, question. This is a good question. You usually play a revenge type of character. What sort of character do you hope to play one day? You can use a Scream Queen as an example.
Honestly, I prefer to play the revenge character, or just like the bad guy, the evil person. Like, those are the characters I absolutely love to play. For me, I'm not so much of like a damsel in distress type of person. So like, I have done a few of those roles, and I feel like struggle a little bit with doing that. But I'm up for like any type of role, honestly, as long as it's like a film and a project that I'm interested in doing. So
but Crazy Fat Ethel starts out that way. You're in a little bit of distress, right? Yeah. There's a little bit of distress there, and then it just kind of goes the way you want it to go. Mm-hmm. And that's one that I do suggest for a lot of people, because being your first role, I think, and not to I guess blow any smoke up anybody's tailpipe, but that was, you outdid yourself in that role, and I think Brian and the crew and the cast all did a great job in that film. And I suggest it if you like, what do you call this, extreme horror? If you like extreme horror, revenge horror,
I would say for sure revenge horror. Definitely, like, in a sense too, it's kind of like any like cult film, because Brian himself is like a big fan of like John Waters and stuff like that too, and you see that in all of his films and like the work he does, with some of like the funny parts and stuff like that. The example would be the butthole scene. So Crazy Fat Ethel. So like, that's a really good example.
The butthole scene.
Yeah.
Aptly named.
Yeah. But I would say it's a revenge film for sure. And I think it does a good portrayal of like the original and like updating it. Because if you haven't seen the original, or anybody, you can absolutely watch it. It's like 60 minutes long, and it's on YouTube. And I always suggest watching that first before you watch ours, so you can kind of see like what it's supposed to be. Because sometimes people have watched Crazy Fat Ethel and was like, what the hell is this? Like, I don't understand. So
yeah, watching the original of any film helps a ton. I just brought up When a Stranger Calls. They took that 20-minute cold open of a film and made a whole feature length out of it, and that's what you did with Crazy Fat Ethel. So why not, right? So listen, we've got Christian Rao here with an excellent question. Donald Farmer is a prominent name in indie film, and he's done it all. Did working with him open your eyes to anything new? What say you?
It was definitely different working with Donald. The way, honestly, working with any director, every film set's different. But the way Donald does his film, he's like straight to the point, like, we're doing this. So it's definitely, I don't think it opened my eyes up to anything new, but it was definitely a different way to see the whole process and how, you know, his mind works because of all the film he has done. And then seeing how like what he has on script changes and molds into what we get on film. So.
And are there a lot of changes that happen on the fly like that?
Sometimes the dialogue could be like, you know what, say this instead. And then like you spend all this time remembering the dialogue and it's like, all right, I'm doing this. So like on the spot, you're saying something new. But he'll definitely like support you in that. And like, he'll have you, run your lines and stuff before you do the scene to make sure like it's going to flow and stuff like that. So.
Well, I mean, he wrote and directed Debbie Does Demons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you wrote it, change it at will, I guess. Steve Feck, this question may seem out of left field. He did that on purpose. He says left field. He did that on purpose. He wants to throw in baseball puns to be cute. Okay, you're not cute, Steve. He's kind of cute. He's a cute guy. But would you be flattered or insulted if a film project you loved was selected to be satired by Mystery Science Theater 3000? Let me think about that myself.
I mean, I would say flattered, although if they were saying something about me in particular, I might be like, oh, damn. With Crazy Fat Ethel, there's like a ton of different reviews you can watch. And I think I stumbled upon one probably like a couple weeks ago, and like these people were just hating on the film. Like they watched it for free online somewhere, and they ripped it apart. I think at the end of it, the guy was like, and Dixie, she fucking sucked, basically is what he said. And his wife, because it was like a couple doing this like review of it, she's like, no, it was how the script was written. Give her credit. I'm just like, fuck my life. Like,
oh, so they basically had a little pro and con going, or I guess maybe a little. I can dig that. Actually, some very good friends of mine over at Mad Wolf, George Wolfington, and oh my God, I'm stumbling on the names here. Mad Wolf. I'm gonna put their link in the bio of this episode. They're great, but they did Obstacle Corpse. They also do film reviews, and I love those guys. Hopefully, it wasn't them.
No,
but
it wasn't them. Like they literally like watch the entire film, and as they're watching it, I think it's as they watch it, they give like critiques on like all this different stuff that's happening, and what was funny is they watched our film because of the title, and like the very opening. It's not the opening scene, but when it gets to the sex and rape scene, like the wife wanted to turn it off. But They kept watching it, and then once they watched it, they realized that it was a remake, and so then they watched the original and ripped that one apart too.
Well, that is a touchy subject for a lot of people, and for good reason. But at the same time, you're the artist here, and you have stories to tell. Mm-hmm. And if you're handcuffing the artist, you're doing an injustice. You don't have to watch it. There's a reason we have, the Parents Guide on IMDb, or a film ratings, and why it's rated in such a way. You can do your homework before seeing a film, and if you've got trigger warnings, or if you have triggers, find the warnings and take care of yourself. But
that was part of the issue. So apparently, I think they said this was rated like PG-13 or something like that, like our version. Like that they saw, and then they watched some other movie that was like rated R, and they're like, how does that even like comprehend versus our film? So
fair. Yeah. Well, you followed up that film with Piggy, and you wrote and directed Piggy 3 years after you start as Ethel. Like 3 years feels like a metamorphosis period. Was it?
Yeah, so the next role I did after Crazy Fat Ethel was actually for Kill Dolly Kill, which is the sequel to Dolly Deli. But that film, it was in a long process, and it finally got released. It had its premiere this year. But from there, eventually I was just kicking around the idea, I want to do this little short film that like I just had this idea in my head, and a lot of times that's what happens with the shorts I create. I just I picture it in my head first. I don't necessarily always have the script. I'm not a great script writer at all. Like, I hate words. I like pictures and visuals.
Sure.
So I'll picture the stuff in my head and then piece it all together that way. But it was definitely a story I wanted to tell because I feel like a lot of times there's not a lot of films regarding plus size people or fat people, whatever terms you want to use for it. And so I was like, all right, I want to do this. And what's funny is that there is the other film, Piggy, the Spanish film.
Yes.
And
Very
it
big
was
fan of
originally
that.
a short. It is so good. But it was a short at the time, and we both released our shorts on like the circuit, like the film festival circuit, but their title was in Spanish, so like you didn't even realize it. And so literally these two films were like going around in the film festivals and stuff like that at the same time. And then eventually they went on to make it a feature film. But
Yeah. So if you're looking for that, the name of that film is Cerdita. And yeah, that was definitely a good film. Laura Galvan is the actress from that film, and she's fantastic. They basically recreated the well, it's what they did with When a Stranger Calls. I don't want to keep bringing up When a Stranger Calls, but that's what they did. They had a short film and made the short film into a feature length by reshooting the short film with a few different actors, a few of the same actors. I actually preferred the bad guy in the original short film.
See, I didn't get to see the short, but like I did watch the feature, and I was just like, man, fuck those bitches, stay with the killer. Like that's literally what was going on in my head.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong though. That brings me to this question because you talk about writing, but what's your favorite job to do on crews, such as writing, directing, etc.?
I would honestly say like art department, like set design, like I love that, but acting is essentially creating a character. Like I love to play dress up. So playing in makeup and creating these characters and wigs and stuff is like my absolute favorite thing, but followed up would be like creating the art or set designs and all that good stuff because it's just being creative, which is essentially what I love to do.
So before coming on, I checked out one of your short films called Human Toilet, and it's I'm trying to I'm trying to put the vocabulary together right now to not spoil it, but also give more props to Adam Freeman for the pure abuse that this man takes, that he volunteers for. Because you said that he was not originally set to play this role, right? He walked in when somebody backed out.
Yeah, so literally the day before we're supposed to film, the male that I had got COVID. So he had a fever and stuff. So I was like, Adam, so Adam literally came to the rescue and jumped right in. Because like I already had a hotel room booked for the other guy and stuff. So I was like, Adam, I got a place for you to stay if you can, fill in this role. And he absolutely jumped in to help me. And I think it turned out fantastic. Like Adam can scream if you need somebody to scream. So
yeah, he can scream. Listen, I both laughed
and you can spoil
cringed.
it if you want to. Like it's absolutely okay to spoil it. So I'm like, that's totally fine.
There's a part that I'm going to have to spoil, okay? But I laughed and I cringed at this film. And the laughing started when your lead character cracked Adam over the head with his liquor bottle. The way he fell just almost felt like pro wrestling style. Like there's the hit and then he falls, and I start cackling because I just knowing Adam, and it's always so fun to hear him. Like, I know in like another film, he's talking about a girl with like huge boobs and a fat ass, and he's like, I've done her so many times, and I'm just sitting there thinking, like, you're going home to Steve McGill, okay? You two handsome devils can church it up on screen all you want to, but hearing you talk like that is just so funny to me. And then you watch Adam and you see the heart that he puts into every project. and like he's heartbroken if he doesn't think it's done well, but he never gives up, and he never gives up on you. You know, he never gives up on his teammates. And gosh, man, working with Adam must be a delight. But nonetheless, as much of a delight as he is, he gets his penis cut off with some scissors. And I thought, man, that could not have happened to a better guy. So, tell me about making Human Toilet and the motivation behind the film.
So the storyline and story idea actually came from Fritz, my boyfriend, who also is part of Headless Cat Productions with me. Jesse Seitz was putting together an all-female extreme horror anthology film, and I had just asked her. I was asking her a question, and then somehow I was like, "Okay, sweet, great, you're going to direct a segment." It's kind of how like it rolled into. I was like, "What? Oh, okay, sweet, cool, I'm doing this." And so again, I hadn't really done too much extreme stuff or anything like that. So I definitely did a lot of like watching films, like Lucifer Valentine films and stuff like that. Doing research, kind of figure out what I want to do. And Fritz came up with a story, and I was like, okay, we're doing it. So essentially, you know, and the easiest thing too is like a lot of times it's always like, oh, we're gonna go, you know, the female is going to go after the male and stuff like that. But I feel like, you know, a lot of times female can be brutal to another female as well, just because of like stuff they do in life. So I definitely wanted to show both sides of that, with Sarah Ramsey's character, portraying like the victim and stuff, what Athena's character does.
Well,
and then,
you know, if you thought that, you know, you have it bad in that film, Secrets of the Witch doesn't get any better. I'll just say that like there's a common theme amongst these films, and there's, you know, a lot of girl power, a lot of extreme mutilation, and I mean, I wanted more short films before the weekend was over, and I just ran out of them. And the reason that we know each other today is because of a film called Curse of the Weredeer. And Curse of the Weredeer, let me just go back to anybody who might be hearing the story for the first time. And, you know, slasher sports, for, you know, since the beginning, we've always covered baseball. Baseball is you know, one of the biggest loves that, you know, between myself and my partner Christian Rao. And, you know, there for a time I was like, you know what, I also want to, you know, put the slasher into the slasher sports, and brought in a podcast called Slashers and Screamers that I did with some good friends of mine, where we would just basically tongue-in-cheek review some of our favorite films. Well, along the way, you know, we got our website up and running, and we were just doing articles. And I said, man, there's a guy in my hometown who's making a horror film, and I really want to just put him over. And I had not spoken to Ben Johnson since probably 1999, 1998.
Oh, wow.
Because he graduated from the same high school as I did, 2 years, I believe, before me. And I graduated in 2000. I think he graduated in 98. I could be wrong about that. Could have been 99, but I think it was 98. And I hadn't really ever we were just in two different circles. You know, I was kind of with the athletes. He was with, you know, the artistic musical crowd. And when I heard, though, that he was making this film and looking for a place to shoot and all that, I said, man, I might not know him, but he's from my little one-horse town, and his mom was my geometry teacher. You just know everybody. My graduating class was about 110 people or fewer, so his was probably similar. We all kind of know each other. I might not have known him, but I knew him. Yeah. So I said, nah, man, I'm going to put his information into an article, and I just see what it does. I'm gonna reach out to him and see if he'd be okay with me stealing some of his graphics. And when I watch the trailer, one of the first faces that I see is it's a monster. It's something like that. What's the line? It's not. It's
Oh
a monster.
gosh.
It was a monster. I don't remember exactly, but it's you. It's you and your fortune
was
teller.
a monster.
There you go. There you go. In these, there you go. So you're the fortune teller and all over regalia, and you pop up a few times in the film, and I can't wait for people to get a good look at the final edit of this film. It's almost like you pop up like is it Keenan Ivory Wayans who keeps showing up in Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood? Keeps showing up with message. I think it's him. But then you just keep popping up at random times at this place, and it's always just a delightful view. Ben's allowed me to watch a couple of different versions of this film, and every time I'm just more and more happy with it, and I hope it blows up. But it's because of that article that I was able to meet you, reconnect with Ben. There's Ben Schatzel. There's Jasmine Hanks, Jessa Flux, Adam Freeman, Joe Duff. Who am I leaving out? I'm leaving out a lot of people, but this is just a really fun crew. Well, we can't forget about the lead guy, right? Derek Woodrow Johnson himself. And just like so many of these guys that have just been an absolute delight to talk to. And, because of that film, I don't know if this podcast would have taken off as well as it has without reaching out about that film, because it was kind of the spark, It was kind of the spark. So, I mean, I guess I want to know about your experience working on Curse of the Weredeer.
It was absolutely a blast. So originally there was just Weredeer. It was just a little trailer that we did originally, prior to actually doing the actual feature film. And I met Ben. He followed me on like Instagram or something like that, and somehow we connected. Because he talked about wanting to do something locally or whatever, and then just stayed in touch. And then he asked me to play fortune teller in that first just trailer of the film that they were doing, which was essentially a no budget film trailer. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I threw together a gypsy outfit. Again, not knowing anybody in this situation, I just put myself out there. And everybody was fantastic and so wonderful. And I definitely fell in love with that cast and crew from that initial set. And then so when he was like, yeah, we're going to do it into a feature film, I was like, I'm down. Like, yes. And so I upgraded the fortune teller outfit for the film. And it was just a blast. And I even got to do a little bit of like artwork and set design, helping with that on the set too. So that was a lot of fun, because sometimes you don't get that opportunity. Because I'm definitely, a lot of films I've been part of is definitely like hands-on. Like, you're not just acting, you're doing other stuff behind the scenes too. That was definitely how Crazy Fat Ethel was, and like how I thought, well, oh, this is filmmaking. Like, we're the crew and the cast. And so it's definitely like crazy to see how different sets are. But working with everybody was freaking fantastic. Derek is freaking phenomenal at any role you give him. Like, he's just simply amazing and will play that character to the full end. So it's definitely great being able to act, alongside him in that film. And I think that's where, from working with him with that, I was like, hey, when we did Deadly Dealings and doing that little TV segment, I was like, I need you for this character. So,
well, speaking of Deadly Dealings, again, Adam Freeman directed, Ronnie Jonah, Jessa Flux, Steve McGill, talented kid named Connor McCarthy, again, Brian Dorton, who brought him up a couple of times. I'd recently done a review of Deadly Dealings, and Freeman allowed me to screen it. Again, honored. I'm always honored when somebody allows me to view a film that's not released to the public yet. but a lot of the same troupe of actors and crew members. I mean, I feel like working under the direction of Adam Freeman has to be a unique experience.
He definitely he wants your input and stuff whatever scene and stuff you're doing. Like, he definitely likes to work alongside people. It's not just like, all right, here's this role, here you go. You know, he definitely wants your input and to talk through the characters and like what he wants you to look like and like the atmosphere and stuff like that. So that's kind of like the process that he does when working with it. So like literally you're almost alongside him the entire step of the way.
Kyle P, my man, says you've worked with so many great people. Is there anyone else you want to work with?
Yes, lots of people. Kyle, I want to work with you. I haven't worked with you yet. So
yeah, Kyle.
I haven't worked with Steve Morris yet either. There's like a whole handful of people. But I just absolutely love, you know, doing the work. And for me, it's just honestly like, you know, money and stuff like that's never a factor. I just want to create the best character that I can and portray it and hopefully get super bloody or make somebody super bloody. Like, that's my goal.
So, Dixie, you've been in lead roles, supporting roles. You're a talented character actor. You've now directed and written for screen. What's next for you?
Honestly, due to like the day job, I can't do as much as I would like to. You know, gotta pay those bills, unfortunately. Sure. But I definitely I want it next for me. And like I keep going back and forth because originally I wanted to take Piggy into a feature film, and then when I saw that the other Piggy did that, I was like, well, there goes that. So, not saying it would
we can add something to the title. Yeah, we can make a derivative of that title, something with good search engine optimization. You know, maybe the plight of Piggy. I get too crazy with the alliteration sometimes. I need to stop. We're not going to do that. So don't let me title this film.
And then like there's another idea I played around, like a script I wanted to write and partner with a friend to write it. But I think for that one would probably be like too much for me to do as a first feature. But I do want to do, you know, direct my first feature film. And I'm honestly kind of playing with the idea of Secrets of the Witch and turning that into a feature. Because the idea for that film came from an actual article, a Vice article that like I came across. I was like, is this true? Like, did witches really do that? And then I Googled it and they certainly did. So I was like, I gotta do this like that. And literally that film, there wasn't really a script either. Like there was just like, okay, I want this to happen. There wasn't really like, oh, you're gonna say this line or this line. Well, I was like, hey, this is just what I want it to look like. We're gonna do this, and this is how it's gonna end. And literally, it was
so they really did that.
Mm-hmm.
They did the thing in the film.
Well, that's what they were accused of. So the Malus Maleficarum, I think that's how you say it. I can't remember the title of the book. The guy was like a witch hunter, and like you know, was accusing women of being witches or whatever. So he wrote this book on how to basically determine if someone's a witch and what they do. And essentially, you know, they claimed that, you know, the witches would take, you know, hide the men's manhood or take their penises and turn them into pets. And so I got into so
well, the method of removal was uncomfortable for me. I mean, I would have thought witches back then would have like used a little bitty guillotine or something, you know, just
maybe.
Then, I don't know. It seems like a cleaner.
But there's also if you look, there's artwork, so that also depicts like it's a bunch of trees. It's called I think it's, again, I'm not saying if it's how you say it correctly, the phallus tree. But basically it's trees and bushes like with all these penises tied to it, and essentially, you know, if a man came and, you know, needed a penis and wanted to pick one out, if he picked out the bigger one or anything like that, he would be cursed even more and like all this stuff. So it's really interesting to like read through.
Gosh, yeah. What if the Bible told you not to eat from that tree, right? Just think about that knowledge you'd have gotten. Listen, I know all about that tree though, the phallic tree, the phallus tree. I mean, they had it on Pee Wee Herman's movie, Big Top Pee Wee. Remember the hot dog tree that he had? It's a hot dog tree because it's a hot dog tree. But listen, Dixie, we're getting crazy here. Any links that that we've talked about that can be shared, they're gonna be in the episode bio, the episode description to this episode. So listen, you're gonna find them there, click them, look at them, watch them, love them. Now, before we slide into the gag reels, Dixie, you want to tell everybody where they can find your work or you on your socials?
Headlesscatproductions.com or headlesscatpro on Instagram and Facebook. And then for me personally, DI666IE on Instagram. And that's it.
That's satanic. That is satanic. Okay. And in case you didn't catch it, because we did have a little bit of garbled audio there for a second, that is Headless Cat Productions. Okay, my favorite kind of cat. But that is going to do it for this episode of Slasher Sports Cinema. I do want to thank you all for showing up, showing out, especially the fantastic commenters and question askers. Kyle P., Steve Feck, Steve Morris, Christian Rao. Who else we got in here? I think that's it. Man, you guys have been fantastic. Dixie, you've been amazing. Thank you very much for your time now and in the future, because I am going to ask you to come back. You know I'm going to ask you to come back. This is not a one-stop thing. But please make sure to check out our other shows in the Slasher Sports family, Suki's Honeydew Project, Slasher U, the OK Baseball Podcast, and then come back next week to Slasher Sports Cinema. We're going to be doing some different things going forward. You just never know what you're going to see. So for Dixie Gers, I am Billy Graves. I wish you all to be victorious in all that you do, and may you drink the blood of your enemies from the skulls of their children.